We are back. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, as always. And listen, I took the last week off because of the fact that, this is kind of I always call it the dead period in sports, right? There's not a ton of stories going on. We get that. But over the last week and over the last few days specifically, We've got a pretty full show for you guys tonight. But first, before I even discuss any of the topics, I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer because, again, this show is live. The fact that up until about, it's 6:01 Eastern, 3:01 Pacific, up until about 30 minutes ago, the area of which I live, this whole area, experienced a pretty big power outage, lasted for about an hour. So if there's any issues with the stream, that's why. So far we're a minute in, so good, no issues with the power. So, crossing our fingers that continues. But we got a great show. I'm going to start by talking about LeBron's 56-point masterpiece against my Golden State Warriors on Saturday. I'll talk about the Lakers. I'll talk about LeBron. And I'll talk about my Warriors, as well as the Dallas Cowboys. They're letting go of Amari Cooper and Demarcus Lawrence reportedly to clear out some cap space. And a lot of Cowboys fans are kind of freaking out over. I'm here to tell you, it's not that big of a loss. I'm also going to discuss, this is going to be fun, the MLB lockout. I got a lot to say about that, as well as the Dallas Mavericks. I'm bought into them. You know what? I'm gonna buy stock into the Dallas Mavericks for the 2022 playoffs because I think they're a title contender. I thought the only title contenders out west was Phoenix and Golden State, and it's everybody else. Nope. Put Dallas in that group, and I'll explain why. And at the end of the show, going to discuss this weird Kyler Murray situation. And look, listen, anybody in the comments, you want to discuss Aaron Rodgers, have at it. But I've discussed Aaron Rodgers like 5 of the last 6 shows. I'm not kidding. And so I'm not even going to go into that until he makes his final decision or there's a major news break in that regard. So let's talk first. Again, the show we've got today, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, it has been absolute crazy town, and I absolutely love it. So let's get right into the show right now. So the Lakers beat my Warriors last night. LeBron James was incredible. In terms of scoring, his greatest output as a Los Angeles Laker. 56 points. Knocking down threes. Getting in the basket. Right? He only had 3 assists. We kind of know LeBron as a great scorer and a great distributor. That's kind of his brand. That's what he's known for as a basketball player. No, he said, as he said after the game, it was about desperation. Which, to me, what that game showed last night, again, I'm going to start with the Lakers, then move on to my Warriors, is the Lakers are everything that I said they would be this season. Now, did I think they would be 9th in the West? No, I didn't think it'd be that bad. But I never bought into this team as a title contender. And what was the thing? You can go back and look at the tape that I said on my man John Rivera. Shout out to John, frequent commenter on this show, the host of the Fan Perspective podcast, or at least one half of it. Go check out their content. But I had my man John on the show in October to do my NBA preseason predictions. And I said, the one thing I like about the Los Angeles Lakers is LeBron. What else is there to like about the roster? It's old. It's gotten a little younger because they've let go of guys like DeAndre Jordan, and obviously Rondo was traded months ago to Cleveland, and they've let go of certain guys. But you still got Dwight Howard, who's unplayable. You've got Kent Bazemore. You got Wayne Ellington, who's still on the roster. You got Carmelo Anthony, who's playing well, but he is 37 years old. It's an old roster, and your most talented player, I think at this point, the only guy that's in his prime, Anthony Davis. Shocker, he's hurt again. And he's probably going to be out another month. And then you got the Russell Westbrook aspect of it, and the reports coming out of LA are bad. Basically, the Lakers cannot wait to move on from Westbrook, and Westbrook cannot wait to move on from the Lakers. It was a match made in basketball hell, really, if you think about it. I've never used that term to describe this, but it's been terrible. LeBron was the only thing I liked. My only concerns about him were health, and he had some injuries early in the season. He seems to be okay now. Great. But the bottom line for the Los Angeles Lakers is this. It took 56 points for you to win a game. It took LeBron scoring 56, his greatest scoring output as a Laker, to win this game. So let's not, I know there's sort of this narrative going around Lakers Nation because I guess it was the big Saturday night game. You're playing the Warriors. It's LeBron versus Steph. For one reason or another, they always play close games against one another, no matter how good or how bad either of the two teams are. LeBron, Steph always put up great matchups against each other. Steph played well himself. He scored 30, but in terms of the magnitude of the moment, nobody on that floor can hold a candle to LeBron. But again, I reiterate, it took 56 points. It took LeBron, who's a up and down, decent free throw shooter, to be a great free throw shooter, to basically turn into his counterpart on the other side, Steph Curry, from the free throw line. He was 12 for 13. All right, that's as efficient as he's ever been for the free throw line. What is that, like 90, 91, 93%, something like that? I mean, it's in the 90s. He's great from the free throw line. He was great from three. At one point, he hit 3 in a row. He had the lob on the steal. The lob, I think Malik Monk threw it, and he went up with one hand and tomahawked it. It's like, my gosh, this guy's in year 19 at age 37. He's ridiculous. And this is why I said, like, when sort of the last few weeks, the whole KD-LeBron debate has been going. And I love KD. I think I've always said he's the most gifted scorer in the history of the NBA. Not saying he's the greatest, but he's the most gifted. KD can't do that. I love KD. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. The only player, and I've been consistent on this for the last year, the only player that is better at the game of basketball, I believe currently, than LeBron James is the Greek Freak in Milwaukee. That's it. Okay? But that was a virtuoso. That was one of the greatest games LeBron James has ever played, and the Lakers needed it. With that said, folks, stop with the Lakers are back in title contention. It's kind of like when LeBron was in Cleveland that last go-around. Remember the playoffs in 2018, and the Cavs were just terrible, but LeBron was putting up these 40-point triple-doubles and just dragging them to these wins. It's like, that's what he has to do. LeBron, in that playoff run in 2018, he couldn't have a good game and the Cavs win. He had to be out of this world for the Cavs to even have a chance to win. Same case now with the Lakers. I mean, even in those few games in this losing streak that the Lakers just broke against Dallas and the Clippers and the Pelicans, LeBron was getting his. LeBron was scoring his points. Currently, as we sit here today, he's second in the NBA in scoring. LeBron was doing his thing, man. Didn't matter. And even down the stretch of that game Saturday night, the Lakers in the last 3-4 minutes should have run away with that game. Because Steph was the only Warrior that could seem to score any points. And LeBron was getting whatever he wanted and dishing it to guys. Obviously, Carmelo hit the big shot to put the Lakers up 6 with about 30 seconds left. That was kind of the dagger shot. But Russell Westbrook, bad turnover after bad turnover after bad turnover. I know he scored 20. I know he was fairly efficient. But this is what you're going to get from him. Look, as a guy, I love Russell Westbrook. I think he's a phenomenal human being. I think he's got a great family. And the things he's doing off the court, hats off to Russ. But I've always said this. He is not a winning basketball player. I've also said this. His basketball IQ, especially for a point guard, is atrocious. Again, some of those decisions he's making, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just get away from the basketball and let LeBron make the decisions. Like, I don't know what you're doing. So that's what's going to hold the Lakers back against a struggling Warriors team, which I'm going to get into in just a second. It took LeBron to score 56 points. I'm still not sold that this Lakers team will even play in the second play-in game. Because obviously how the play-in tournament goes, it's fairly new. The 7 seed plays the 8 seed. The winner of that game is in the playoffs. The loser of that game plays the winner of the 9 seed versus 10 seed game. Are we sure the Lakers are going to even be in that second game? Because they're not going to the 7 seed. They'd have to get crazy hot in order to do that. So no, I do not buy the Lakers whatsoever. LeBron? Yeah, I still buy him clearly. Year 19, age 37. I actually saw this stat that LeBron James is, I believe, the only player in NBA history to have a 50-point game before the age of 21, as well as a 50-point game after the age of 35. Like, there's been guys who have 50-point games before 21 and guys who's had it after the age of 35. I think of Michael Jordan with the Wizards in 01. I think of, obviously, Kobe scoring 60 in his farewell, but never to do it before 21 and after 35. Scoring a 50-point game, LeBron James has done just that. He's phenomenal. No question about it. Before I get my Warriors, my man Grady Edwards is back in the comment section. He says, talking about Russell Westbrook, why don't they just pay him to go home? Just too much of an investment, I guess. I guess so. The thing with Russ is they're paying him a ton of money. I mean, a ton of money. So I don't think, and look, I don't think Russ is the type of dude that's just going to get paid to just stay away. I don't think he's that kind of basketball player. But it's a disaster. I mean, you see the reports coming out of Los Angeles saying that, they're wanting to move into the bench, but oddly Frank Vogel, who was the one, and I sided with Frank Vogel, who's benching him in some of these fourth quarters in the last 5 minutes. He doesn't want to bring Russ off the bench. It's like, man, y'all gotta figure something out. So, and it's a mixed bag with LeBron too, because LeBron is the reason Westbrook's there, but he's also dragging the Lakers. So it's kind of a 50-50. It's like, you're scoring 56. You're second in the NBA scoring, playing phenomenal. Like I said, to me, the only player in the NBA better than LeBron James, the only player in the world better than LeBron James is Giannis. I said my top three, 1 to 3, Giannis, LeBron, Steph. I'll take Steph over KD. But at the end of the day, LeBron did sort of create this. He wanted Russell Westbrook. He bought into Anthony Davis. Right? He brought Carmelo in, which, hey, Melo's been good in his role, so I'm not going to hate on that too much. But Dwight Howard and Kent Bazemore, Ellington, it's not good. Like, Austin Reeves is literally, it seemed like he's the Lakers' second or third most consistent player. Like, Melo does his job when he's out there. LeBron, we know what he gives you. Austin Reeves, what they call him? They called him something Mamba, like the Midwest Mamba or something like that, because he played at Oklahoma State. Like, that's what the Lakers season's come down to. LeBron, an old Melo, and a kid named Austin Reeves. That's not going to get you too far. Not against Phoenix, who almost beat the Bucks yesterday without Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Cameron Johnson. They almost beat the Bucks on the road. So Phoenix is clearly the best team in basketball. Golden State, hopefully they get their act together. And that's kind of where I want to transition to next, is my Golden State Warriors. The same team that I predicted, but way before preseason. Like I said this back last summer. I said, get Klay Thompson back. They're winning the finals if everybody stays healthy. The Warriors have been awful the last 10 games. I don't want to sound like I'm going too much of a rant here, but dang, I'm going on a rant because that's what it is. That's unacceptable. I know Draymond Green being out hurts. I get that. Anyone who knows anything about basketball knows how valuable Draymond Green is to the Warriors. Steph's the most valuable player on the team. We saw that the year he was out. They had the worst record in the league when Steph was gone. But Draymond's the second most valuable. Not Wiggins, not Iguodala, not Clay, not Poole, not Kamik. No. It's Draymond Green. No question about it. And we saw the stat. With Draymond, they're 28-6. Without him, they're 15-15. So flip a coin on whether the Warriors can win that particular game without Draymond Green. Steph's played fairly well over the last 4 games. Played really well. He went 13 for 22 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, scored 30 points against the Lakers. Steph got his. He was good. Klay Thompson. My man. And this hurts because I love Klay. You've got to be better. This is bad. Listen, I wasn't expecting Klay to come back and be, 37 points in a quarter, Klay. That's unrealistic. I'm not even criticizing him for the fact that maybe his defense isn't that great. That'll come. Or that he's missing shots. Klay's a shooter. He's going to make shots. Okay, he had a wide open look late in the fourth quarter against the Lakers. He just missed it. Maybe he had too much time to think about it. That can happen oftentimes to shooters. My issue with Klay, he is taking awful shots. Y'all are seeing it. He's taking over double teams. He's taking, contested shots in the baseline, contested fadeaways in the baseline, which anyone who knows anything about basketball, anybody who's ever played basketball knows that is one of the toughest shots. That's one of the lowest percentage shots you can take. A fadeaway contested on the baseline. And then just taking these pull-up threes in transition when he's ice cold. Klay's shot selection has got to be better. And Steve Kerr, a coach who I've always said has been highly overcriticized. I mean, there's a reason that Team USA tapped him to be their next head coach. Steve Kerr, I think, until Klay can get it going, until his shot selection can get better, Klay needs to continue to start. Don't get me wrong. But in the last 5 minutes of these games, Klay don't need to be in the closing lineup yet. He's not ready. Closing lineup, once Draymond comes back, needs to be Steph, Poole, Wiggins, Draymond, and I would probably go with the rookie, Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga has played excellent. I mean, it's gotten to the point for the Warriors where Kuminga and their other first-round pick, their other lottery pick, Moses Moody, who's played great recently, has become more reliable than Klay. That's the thing. Once Draymond comes back, they're going to be fine. Okay, everybody's panicking. Oh, are the Warriors championship contenders? Yes, they're championship contenders. Relax. However, not only can they not win a championship without Draymond, Klay's got to be better. Klay don't need to score 30 points or anything like that. He don't even need to be the best defensive player on the floor. That's Draymond's job. Man, the shot selection has got to be better. 3 for 12 from the field, 7 points. That's not good enough, man. You're an all-star. And look, knowing the competitor Klay is, he knows he's played like trash recently. But this has got to be better. I mean, Steph even talked about it after the game, about not giving into a losing mentality. 8 of the last 10, and the Warriors' big bugaboo all season long. It seemed like I've been the only one that's noticing it. They've blown a lot of leads recently. Right, obviously, they blew a double-digit lead against the Lakers on Saturday night. So the game, obviously, everybody saw because of LeBron's great performance. They flat out choked in the fourth quarter against Dallas, up 19 in the fourth quarter. And the Mavericks, who I'm going to talk about later in the show, go on a 26-1 run to take the lead, and they wound up winning the game. Like, that's unacceptable. You cannot blow a 19-point fourth quarter lead on your home floor. Can't happen. You blow a double-digit lead against Denver in a game where the Nuggets win on a buzzer-beating 3 on your home floor. Earlier this season, they blew a big lead to Memphis. This has kind of been the Warriors' issue. They've blown some big leads at home, on the road. Doesn't matter. Whether that's coaching, whether it's, dare I say, Steph maybe not taking enough shots. I mean, Draymond actually has been on the floor for some of these games. They've got to fix this. Now, the good news for the Warriors is they're still second in the West. Now, Memphis is right on their tail. They actually are tied as the 2 and 3 seeds. Golden State's obviously not catching Phoenix. Phoenix is like 8.5 games up. They're not catching Phoenix. Suns, like I said, are the best team in basketball. There's no question. And in all likelihood, the Warriors are going to lose tonight to Denver because Steph, Klay, and Wiggins are all sitting out because it's the front end of a back-to-back, and for traveling purposes, it's a long story. But playing a complete 48 minutes of basketball, Warriors have got to fix that. Got to. Defensively, they've been terrible in this cold spell. I mean, they gave up, 124 to the Lakers? LeBron can score 56. That's LeBron. We get that. Russell Westbrook cannot go off for 20. Okay? Got other guys who are producing for Los Angeles. You can't allow those guys to go off. So, that's my rant in the Warriors. By the way, Andrew Wiggins, deserved all-star starter. I defended him like crazy on the show when everybody was killing him. You've got to be better. Defensively, I think Wiggins has been decent. But man, wide open shots he's missing. So Wiggins got to be better. Obviously, Draymond needs to come back, and you need Wiseman for size purposes. And, certainly Andre Iguodala coming back does not hurt at all. But this is just an issue of bad defense, missing wide open shots. It's losing basketball. Steph pointed out after the game. Got to be better, man, if you want to win the finals this year. I still think they can. Frankly, my heart's telling me they still will. But if they go into the playoffs playing the way they're playing, I'm not sure they'll win a series. Because if you match up against the Joker in the first round, did you see Nikola Jokic last night? Holy cow. 30 points in the fourth quarter and overtime. He was outstanding. That was an MVP performance right there. If you match up against a Dallas, a Utah even, I'd probably take him to beat Utah, but that's a drag-out series if you're not careful. The team you definitely want to avoid for the Warriors is the Clippers, because they lost in a blowout fashion to the Knicks last night. But holy cow, you got to be better. That's unacceptable. That's a bad basketball team that the Lakers just played. Or I'm sorry, that the Warriors just played. A bad basketball team led by an all-time great player. You cannot lose that game. Certainly when you're up double digits. You can't happen. Grady's looking at the bright side of things. He says, hey, at least the Warriors don't have Ben Simmons. Man, y'all have been screwed having to give up all that for a guy who hasn't even been suited up yet. That's what I said. Remember when the draft last year, there were rumors that the Warriors could trade, I think, Andrew Wiggins for Ben Simmons, and I was just panicking like, no, surely Bob Myers won't do this. Surely the Warriors aren't going to go after Ben Simmons. And the draft passed, and they made their picks, and I was, it's just a sigh of relief. But I was like genuinely scared that they were actually going to try and make a deal for Simmons, who, as you astutely pointed out, Grady, has still not suited up yet and has a mysterious back injury that came out of nowhere. Like, how did he get this back injury? Sitting on his couch and it got stiff or something? I mean, because that's the only conclusion I can come to, because he hasn't played since June of last year. I'm telling you, Ben Simmons drives me crazy. And you see, I mean, the Nets, man, I didn't buy in the Nets either. But this is kind of what I said about Brooklyn about 2 weeks ago, right? Because I said the Sixers won the trade. I think that's being, that's very obvious right now. Harden and Embiid are 2-0 together, right? They're playing great basketball. And then you look at the Nets and Kevin Durant, he's back, and they're still losing. They're game below 500. Are they the 8 or the 9 seed? I think they're behind Charlotte now. So it's crazy. The two teams that everybody's picking to get to the finals, the Nets and the Lakers, both, in all likelihood, certainly the Lakers, but in all likelihood, both will be in the play-in tournament, just trying to get in the playoffs, much less making a run for a championship, because both teams are poorly constructed. Yes, you got your superstar. You got Brooklyn with Kevin Durant, Lakers with LeBron. Two other superstars, both unreliable, though. Kyrie Irving, we know his unreliability. And Anthony Davis, well, we know his unreliability in terms of his health. And Kyrie himself, now, in the games he's played, he's stayed fairly healthy, but he's only played, 16? So he can get hurt. You still got the vaccine thing in New York going. I assume that it's going to be lifted. That's the indication given by the Nets, by Kyrie, by the state of New York. I think they're going to lift the vaccine mandate soon so Kyrie can play home games. That's a mystery unto itself. I have no idea. But he's still not there. Grady says probably clapped too hard from all those hand claps since he got to Brooklyn. Yeah, he's been on the bench. He's been clapping. Talking about Ben Simmons, he's been clapping. That's about it. And I don't really know what a hand clap could injure your hand. I'm sorry, it could injure. Yeah, of course, it could injure your hand if you do it too hard. But how it could injure your back? But geez, this is terrible. Oh my goodness, the Ben Simmons saga continues. All right, let's talk about it's. I can't take a week off without saying the Cowboys are in the news again.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
And it's, once again, not for positive reasons. In all likelihood, Amari Cooper, Demarcus Lawrence, both will be released by the team to clear up cap space Now, I hear a lot of people panicking. Oh my goodness, this is terrible for the Cowboys. You can't release Amari, who's so productive, and Demarcus Lawrence and this and that. Let's start with Demarcus Lawrence. Because, I said on the show when the discussions were starting, okay, who should they cut? If you had to let go of one, I'd say I'd let go of Amari Cooper, who I'll get into in just a second. The money Demarcus Lawrence is making is not matching his production. That is clear. The positive things I'll say is, for an edge rusher, he is an elite run stopper. Matter of fact, he's probably the best run stopper on the team. Like, including the two interior linemen, talking about Tristan Hill or Neville Gallimore or Odigizua. Like, they've got some big boys down there in the middle, but Demarcus Lawrence is really their best run stopper for the Cowboys. So his thing is, he was paid in excess of $20 million a year to get after the quarterback, because all the elite teams in the league got an elite pass rusher. Obviously, the Rams, that goes without saying. Aaron Donald, Von Miller, we'll see what Von Miller does in free agency. There's a lot of buzz going on right now about him. The Bengals, while I have major concerns about their roster, they've got Hendrickson. They've got Hubbard. They got guys that can get to the quarterback now. Chris Jones in Kansas City. Nick Bosa in San Francisco. The list goes on and on. In terms of the contenders, they got dudes who can get after the quarterback on a consistent basis. Demarcus Lawrence hasn't really done that. Look at his numbers before he signed that big deal in 2019 and after, in terms of his sack numbers. It is night and day. I think in the 3 years since he signed the contract, he's got like 14 and a half sacks in 3 years. Nick Bosa got that in a season, okay? So Demarcus Lawrence's production is not matching what the Cowboys are paying him. Would I prefer to keep him? Yeah, I would. But in my opinion, getting rid of him, you know what that does? It puts Micah Parsons on the edge. And good news for you Cowboys fans, reports are surfacing that Randy Gregory is probably about to be signed to a big deal. And Randy Gregory has been far more consistent in rushing the quarterback than Demarcus Lawrence has been. So that's good news for the Cowboys fans. And again, Micah Parsons is going to play on the other side. Because I think Dan Quinn's going to look at this offseason like, yeah, I can play him as sort of a true blue linebacker. I can put him in coverage. But where's Micah Parsons most effective? Getting after QB1. We saw that. Double-digit sacks. I think he was too shy of the curses for the Titans who played for them years ago. He was like 2 sacks shy of his rookie record. So, and all he did was win unanimous defensive rookie of the year. Get him rushing the passer all 17 games, you're going to get good results from number 11. We know that. We saw that this past season. So I'm not thrilled getting rid of Demarcus Lawrence, but long-term, I kind of understand it. A, with his production, which is not matching his salary right now. We've seen that for 3 straight years. And 2, clear space for Micah Parsons to do even more damage in his sophomore season in the National Football League. Now to Amari Cooper. And people, I swear, are panicking about this one. Like, oh, you cannot get rid of Amari Cooper. Can't do it. Of course you can. Here's been my issue with Amari Cooper. You have no clue what you're getting from him on a game-to-game basis. No clue. He could give you 8 catches for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns against Washington 3 years ago on Thanksgiving. He could give you 10 catches for in excess of 200 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Eagles, which he did 3 years ago. Or he could give you games against the Jets where he had 1 catch for 3 yards. Or games like against the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, I'll skip the second Eagles game. Like against the Patriots, where he had as many catches as you and I did. Unless you're an NFL receiver, just as many catches as you and I did against the New England Patriots. Could not separate. And then, last of all, the game against the Philadelphia Eagles, in a game where every Cowboy choked, including my man, and I love him, Dak Prescott, played awful in that game against the Eagles in that Week 16 game in 2019. But there was one Cowboy who didn't just choke. He flat out quit on the team. Amari Cooper, the stat line's bad. 4 catches, 24 yards. That's terrible. But you also got to add to the equation that Coop was on the sideline for the biggest play of the Cowboys season. He'd go off by himself and pout on the bench and not talk to teammates and just stay away from everybody, out in his own world. Games like last year against the Cardinals. Games last year like against Denver. And the lack of being vaccinated cost him 2 games against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. Sure could have used him for that game, those 2 games, couldn't they? So, this is what you're not going to get from Amari Cooper. Consistency. He could give you 150 yards any given Sunday. He could also give you less than 30 yards any given Sunday. And so, getting rid of Amari Cooper, I've got no problems with that. As a matter of fact, if you look at Dak statistically, Amari Cooper's not even like the 3rd or 4th most valuable player on the Cowboys offense. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN showed a stat today that Dak throwing to Dalton Schultz, who it's reported the Cowboys are going to franchise tag. You know I hate the franchise tag, hate it. But Dalton Schultz is going to come back as a Cowboy next year. Dak Prescott throwing to Dalton Schultz has the highest passer rating of any quarterback throwing to any target in football last year. Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams. Tom Brady to Mike Evans. Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp. Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett. All of these were in the top 5, these connections between quarterback and receiver. None were higher than Dak to Schultz. So Dalton Schultz is actually a more important player to the Cowboys offense than Amari Cooper is. And let me propose this to you, and I'll get to the comments in just a second. Why did the Raiders trade Amari Cooper to begin with? They drafted him 4th overall. A receiver went 4th overall in the 2015 draft out of wide receiver U, Alabama, who's produced, they just, they grow receivers there. We're talking about Julio Jones on down. It's crazy. And Amari Cooper, statistically, was the greatest receiver in Alabama history, really. And for that reason, the Raiders took him 4th overall. And he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, but he'd be hot and he'd be really cold. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, really. 2018, the 6 games he played with the Raiders, he averaged 46 yards per game with Derek Carr. And we saw Derek Carr's value last season now, didn't we? Took a 6-7 team, won 4 straight games, got the Raiders, who had all kinds of drama, into the playoffs. Amari Cooper couldn't even make it work with Derek Carr. In stretches, he couldn't make it work with Dak. Dak has made undrafted guys work. He's made late-round draft picks work, like Cedric Wilson, Michael Gallup, a mid-round pick. Dalton Schultz was a 7th-rounder. Dak made him work. He made Blake Jarwin work when Blake Jarwin was healthy. He made an old Jason Witten, love Jason Witten, but old Jason Witten work. So, Amari Cooper, hot and cold. Last question before I get into the comments. If you're a Cowboys fan today, would you take Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson, both of which are free agents? Reports are coming out that they're negotiating a deal with Michael Gallup to stay. I don't think it's even close. Cedric Wilson established himself. I said on the show multiple times, I think Cedric Wilson's the best number 4 receiver in football. Maybe that's going to be coming second to Odell soon, or Van Jefferson, but Cedric Wilson can play football now. He's a solid 3. What we're also going to see next year, because I love CeeDee Lamb coming out of Oklahoma. Now I'm down to I like CeeDee Lamb. Can he be a true number 1 receiver? We're going to find that out in 2022. But Amari Cooper, I have 0 issues with the Cowboys getting rid of him. 0. No problems whatsoever. Let's see. Get in the comments here. Grady says, Amari can be elite receiver or he looks like a guy who shouldn't be on the field. You're right. The guy is just too inconsistent. Do you keep Gallup then? Yeah, like I said, they're going to keep Michael Gallup. That's the reports coming out of Dallas are. And they're going to also keep Cedric Wilson, which is huge. And they're going to franchise tag Dalton Schultz. So really now, the Zeke thing, it's a long explanation. They really can't get rid of Zeke. And, not have to pay him, basically. So Zeke's going to be there. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. I wish Tony Pollard got more carries. Maybe Kellen Moore will, get some sense into him and give him more carries. Who knows? It's the Cowboys. Who knows? But everybody blaming, Dak's contract. Dak's contract is taking up the salary, but do you want to be irrelevant and win 5, 6, 7 games in a bad division with no franchise quarterback? Or do you want to win double-digit games and make the playoffs? Because that's the ceiling of the Dallas Cowboys roster as currently constructed. Only quarterback that could take this team to the championship game is probably Mahomes, maybe Mahomes. Burrow took a below-average roster to the Super Bowl, so I think Burrow could do it without question. But I think it goes to people overrating the Cowboys roster again. Demarcus Lawrence, and I like him a lot. I have some reservations about getting rid of D-Law. I genuinely do. But what it comes down to is when you see what the Dallas Cowboys are paying him and you see what he's doing on the field, it ain't matching up. Amari Cooper, same thing. Amari Cooper's getting number one receiver money. Now look, is Amari Cooper a number one receiver? It's just like I talked about with Odell Beckham Jr. When he was signed by the Rams in November. We saw that panned out. I said a number one receiver means that you are one of the 32 best receivers in the league because there's 32 teams. Could you start for one of them? At least one. Well, Amari Cooper can. There's no question he's a top 32 receiver. But on a playoff team, a team that supposedly is trying to go win a Super Bowl, no, that's not where you get it from Amari. I mean, listen, you guys see some of those routes he has in practice. Like, he's just breaking dudes' ankles like crazy. God gave that man an ability to run routes. He is incredible. But where's that in some of the biggest games? That's always been my issue with Amari Cooper. I have no idea what I'm getting on a game-to-game basis from him. No idea. Same could be said about CeeDee Lamb, but they're not paying CeeDee Lamb $20 million. And we'll see, we'll see what CD does now in this new number one receiver role. That's going to be very, very interesting to look at. Oh boy, it's something, man. Dallas Cowboys, they're never not out of the news. There's no question about that. That is what the Cowboys do. That is what Jerry Jones loves. So let's talk about the Major League Baseball lockout. Let me first say this, just to give you sort of a little bit of an update for those of you that don't follow baseball that much, maybe. Rob Manfred, commissioner of Major League Baseball, after an agreement after agreement was not able to come to fruition between the owners and the Players Association, Commissioner Rob Manfred announced the first two series of the year have been canceled. So opening day will not start on March 31st. Pretty much there won't be any spring training. If there is a spring training, it's going to be condensed, kind of like the pandemic year when it was only a 60-game season. But right now, there's some good news coming out as of late, but as we sit right now, baseball is in a lockout. And it's like I was talking to my good buddy, shout out to Barry Grant Jr., this past week. You know, Barry's a huge baseball fan. He's a Mets fan. I'm a Red Sox fan. I love the game of baseball. Of any of the major sports, baseball was actually my first love. I played Little League. You know, I grew up rooting for the Red Sox. I'll be a Red Sox fan for the rest of my life, and I love the game. Love it. Love playoff baseball especially. Who doesn't? But baseball is dying. Let's call it what it is. Baseball's dying if it doesn't fix something quick. Because when you look at other sports, let me give you a perfect example of this. The Atlanta Braves Atlanta's a big market now. It's one of the biggest markets in the country in terms of sports. Atlanta Braves, first time in 25 years, a great organization. They won the World Series. They won only 88 games. They were the underdogs in all the series they were in. They beat the Dodgers and they dethroned the Astros and they won the World Series and Freddie Freeman got a ring, and it was a great story in sports, especially for a city like Atlanta who's, they're like in the Cleveland category in terms of just having to watch their team choke time after time. Obviously, the Falcons 28-3, and the Braves have blown 3-1 leads. And up until January, Georgia was known for blowing big leads in big games. And Atlanta finally broke through and got a championship, and it's the World Series. And it was like the third topic on most television and radio shows. Think about that. The Braves winning the World Series. Nobody really cared that much. Who's kind of a casual baseball fan or maybe doesn't watch baseball that much, it barely made any headlines outside of the state of Georgia. Think about this. We care more about the NFL Combine. I don't hate the Combine or anything, but we care more about the NFL Combine than the World Series. Check the ratings. We care more about the NFL Combine, dudes working out, future NFL players just working out, than we do about a 7-game series to decide who the champion of Major League Baseball will be. The Fall Classic, as it's known as. But you look at the game today. And this is my criticism of Rob Manfred, who I've defended at times on the show. I can no longer defend this man because a commissioner's job is two things. Number one, maintain a good relationship between the owners and the Players Association. Clearly, that's gone down the toilet. That's, you can forget about that one. And number two, market the product. I've had a number of criticisms for Commissioner Roger Goodell of the National Football League and how he's handled things like domestic violence and how suspensions for certain players have been inconsistent with others. I've been, very, very critical of Roger Goodell. But one thing I will say about him is that in terms of marketing the game, he's been outstanding. Streaming, us caring about, again, the Combine, how big the draft is. The ratings for the playoffs were insane. The ratings for the regular season were insane. The Cowboys-Raiders Thanksgiving game was the most watched NFL regular season game since 1994. Ratings were through the roof for the NFL. Adam Silver, who is by far my favorite commissioner in sports. I think he's the best commissioner in sports. Everybody whines about, the NBA ratings are so down. Oh, that's funny because last postseason, they were the highest since 2003. And we know the brands of NBA players are massive. Like, they're up there with international soccer. LeBron, Cristiano Ronaldo, same group. Look at their followers on social media. Same group. Let me give the ultimate example of how the popularity between NBA players and MLB players is so vast, how much it contrasts between one and the other. Okay, Mike Trout, who's the best player in Major League Baseball. Okay, he has less followers. The best player in Major League Baseball has less followers on social media than Tyler Hero. Nothing against Tyler Hero. I picked him this season to win Sixth Man of the Year, and he's going to run away with that award. He's an excellent basketball player. Nobody will ever even discuss Tyler Hero as even being the best player in his own team, much less the league. Tyler Hero has more followers on social media than Mike Trout. That's where baseball's popularity is today. That's how bad it is. Think about people like Kathy Engelbert, the new commissioner of the WNBA. look at how she's marketed the league. Ratings for the NBA playoff. The WNBA playoffs this past fall were significantly up. The stars. You see these commercials with Steph Curry. I forgot. It's not CarMax. It's something else. It's some sort of car insurance company that Steph Curry is affiliated with. You know who's in those commercials with him? Sue Bird and Candace Parker. They're marketing these athletes. Baseball has done a horrendous job at marketing their players. By the way, I think there's as much talent today in Major League Baseball as there's ever been. We romanticize the Babe Ruth era and the 60s Yankees and the 90s was a great decade for baseball. At least the latter half of it was a great decade for baseball. And the 80s was great. And the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry of 03 and 04 was amazing. There's more talent today than there's ever been. There's so many great players that you can market. Think about what you could do to market Shohei Ohtani. Now, he's on the cover of the new baseball video game, MLB The Show 22, but he's a two-way player. He's not only a two-way player, he won MVP. He pitches. He's a great pitcher. He's an ace. And he hits for average. I mean, he's a robot. And baseball can't even market him. They can't even market Mike Trout. They can't even market Aaron Judge, the best player on the most known team, the New York Yankees. It is bad, man. This sport is dying. The talent. Think about the Field of Dreams game. 20 years ago, that had been a massive deal. The Field of Dreams game, obviously based off the great movie with Kevin Costner and a great cast. James Earl Jones, they did the game in Iowa. Yankees, White Sox. And it ended at a crazy, it was actually on for my 2021 sports special, recapping the year in sports. That made my top 10 moments of the year where Tim Anderson, one of my favorite players, another guy baseball could market, hit the walk-off homer to beat the Yankees and win the Field of Dreams game. He hit it out into the cornfield. And people barely talked about it. A few years ago, the Yankees and the Red Sox, two biggest brands in baseball, arguably. Certainly the best rivalry probably in sports. They played in London. They played a 2-game series in London. There was home runs, and the scores for those games were insane. And people really didn't care that much. Braves won the World Series, and people talked about it the next day, and that was it. Nobody cared about the Braves anymore outside of Atlanta. This is a problem of Major League Baseball. No question about it. Again, like Grady says, people cared more about LeBron in a fall game than the World Series. Yes, I agree. Something is, I love LeBron, but we should not care more about a LeBron basketball game in October when the season, just an 82-game season, it's a marathon, just begins, than the World Series. Like Grady says, that's just unthinkable. Grady also says, if I was commissioner, I'd make a big splash by forgiving Pete Rose or some jazz like that, just to create some buzz for the sport. They need whatever they can get, Grady. And you know how I feel about the Pete Rose thing. And we saw the Calvin Ridley news came out earlier today. It's crazy what's going on with that. And he's trying to defend himself. It's bizarre what's going on between Calvin Ridley and the NFL. But Pete Rose gambled. We know that. He's admitted to that. He did not gamble against his own team. That did not change what that man did on the diamond for basically 2 decades. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He's got more hits than any player in MLB history, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. The guy who won the most Cy Youngs ever is not in the Hall of Fame. The guy who hit the most home runs ever is not in the Hall of Fame. Just like I talked about a month ago with this Hall of Fame debate. Baseball has this holier-than-thou mentality, like there's no game more pure, there's no league more pure than Major League Baseball. But as I always say, the people that got this holier-than-thou, I'm better than you mentality, it's often them who have the biggest skeletons in their closet. And I don't even have enough show to discuss baseball's stuff that they got in their closet. Some's not even in their closet. It's out in the public. We know how they segregated against African-American players We know the steroids and things of that nature and how they've been very selective in what steroid players they let in the Hall of Fame and what steroid players they don't let in the Hall of Fame. Like Pudge Rodriguez can get in, but Alex Rodriguez can't. I don't get it. It's an absolute disaster. That's the clean version I'll give for you. It's a disaster. And no commissioner in major American sports has done a worse job at marketing their product than Rob Manfred. It's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. We know the NFL is the king of the NFL, or the NFL's king of the NFL. NFL is the king of American sports. We get that. 91 of the 100, I give this stat all the time, 91 of the top 100 television broadcasts were what? NFL games. 90% of them were NFL games. We get that. But Roger Goodell's had a hand to play in that. The NFL does a great job at marketing their players. Okay? Every game, the NFL puts this out. Every game matters. Some of these Thursday night games, folks, are awful. They've gotten better in recent years, but, I mean, the Colts and the Jets, nobody should care about that game. But the NFL puts out the storylines, and this matters, and because of this, and that matters because of that. And, I mean, at the beginning of the show, I said this kind of area in the schedule of the calendar year is kind of, I call it the dead period in sports. I said we come out of it when March Madness happens, which is in like a week. I cannot wait for March Madness. But I also said the second dead period is after the NBA Finals are over, about mid-June to late August when college football starts. Baseball should dominate the ratings from mid-June all the way through August. And in some cases, at least on weekdays, because the NFL is going to control the ratings certainly in September on the weekends, along with college football, Saturdays and Sundays. But Mondays through Fridays, baseball should dominate ratings, and they don't. September, teams are trying to make the playoffs in September. Nobody cares. It's horrible. It is absolutely embarrassing. Embarrassing. Grady says, honestly, MLB could use a polarizing dude like Jerry Jones or Donald Trump to be commissioner of MLB. Not them specifically, but honestly, that's what they need. I don't even think they need someone polarizing. But at the end of the day, they need somebody like, Roger Goodell's not a big personality like a Jerry Jones or a Trump. Adam Silver definitely is. Adam Silver is as bland of a human being as there is, right? Same case with most commissioners. But the fact that I agree they need somebody, I guess, with a little more backbone. I mean, that's what they need. They need somebody with backbone. Jerry Jones, he's got backbone. Yeah, I've got my criticisms of Jerry, but he stands firm to his positions. I don't know if I'd love him to be the commissioner of Major League Baseball, but he could barely run the Dallas Cowboys. But that's how it goes. And frankly, Rob Manfred doesn't care that much about baseball. Let's be real about it. He's been a part, not as the commissioner, just he's worked for Major League Baseball for less than a decade. He's been there since 2013. Look it up. Less than 10 years. He doesn't care about the sport. I have my criticisms of Bud Selig, but this is embarrassing. Frankly, baseball was going to die in the mid-90s when the 94 lockout happened and the World Series was just wiped away. No World Series this year. And it took Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 98 to save baseball, the home run chase. It's bad. It's really bad. And baseball's got to be careful because it could get worse. Look, the news are coming out right now that there's some negotiations happening between the Players Association, the commissioner, and that's great. We may get a season earlier than we think. It could be that we get a 156 game season. Awesome. I want my baseball, right? Yeah, all of you want your baseball. But it's still not addressing the actual problem at hand. That's the issue. It's not a good product. The game is a good product. The teams are good. But what makes it appealing, right? Because, in baseball, because we see these athletes on commercials. The casual fan, maybe somebody who's not that big of a sports fan, they learn about athletes oftentimes through commercials, through social media. That's how we often are introduced to these people. I'm a baseball fan. Where was I first introduced to Fernando Tatis, the great player for the San Diego Padres? Social media, hitting home runs and double and triple A. Shohei Ohtani, social media. Baseball has not embraced it. It took the NFL years to kind of embrace social media. They have now, and it's obviously been to their benefit. NBA embraced social media years ago, and it's really helped their product. Baseball is stuck in the 80s, big time. And even some of the aspects of the 80s baseball was really good. I mean, we could talk all day. I could talk all day about the issues of baseball. I mean, you look at, again, guys, I'm not anti-analytics. I've been very clear about that. But analytics is now driving the sport. It's driving the sport. That can't happen. That's the issue. Grady says, it's as if baseball has just gotten worse in the social media age. If you're not going to embrace what's going on right now, you're going to be left behind. If you don't embrace the newest technologies, you're going to be left behind. Well said, Grady. I mean, it's not working. What they're buying, nobody is selling. The Super Bowl is an event. Right? Obviously, whoever the host city is, they got, parties and stuff like that. It's a huge event for the city. But people care about the Super Bowl. People, to a certain degree, care about the Masters, the NBA Finals. People really care about March Madness. People who don't know anything about basketball, who have not watched a dribble of a single college basketball game this season, you know what they're going to do in a week? They're going to fill out their bracket because that's people enjoy doing that. Because to a degree, by these networks, it's been marketed as such. Major League Baseball, you are behind. And if you don't catch up soon, you're going to be left in the dust. Let's talk now. So let's shift from, man, I'll tell you, it makes me mad. I love baseball, but, man, it's terrible. It is terrible. And hopefully, I'll try and reach out to them, but hopefully I can get some guests who are just as passionate on this issue as I am to discuss it sometime later in this week, because it pisses me off big time. So let's shift back to the NBA. Let's talk about the league whose product people actually care about, the Dallas Mavericks. So I will say this. I'm buying Dallas. I'm buying stock in Dallas. I've said from literally the beginning of the season, back in October, to 2 weeks ago when I last did a show. Right, the Western Conference is a 2-team race. Phoenix, Golden State. I said before the season, Phoenix. You can look it up. I said Phoenix is going to be the 1 seed. Golden State's going to be the 2 seed. What do you know? That's exactly what happened. I said Memphis would surprise some people, but even Memphis is the 3 seed right now, basically the same record as Golden State. I don't buy them as a team that, again, could you actually, I love Memphis. I love Ja Morant. I'm scared about, the possibility for him getting hurt, but that's another discussion for another day. Do you actually see Memphis winning 3 straight playoff series to get to the finals? Because I don't, because they'll have to beat Golden State and Phoenix. And in all likelihood, they won't have home court in either. That's a lot to ask from a really young basketball team who's going in the right direction, but they're not ready quite yet. I said it was a 2-team race. It's a 3-team race now. Dallas is in that race. So first of all, listen, you think Dallas Mavericks, of course, you think Luka Doncic. And you look at the numbers this guy's been putting up. It's ridiculous. Luka Doncic this season, some are even talking about, hey, is he in the MVP discussion? I mean, he's almost averaging a triple-double. And everybody made a huge deal about that when Russell Westbrook did it, and nobody's talking about that Luka is that close to averaging a triple-double. 28 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. And he's top 10 in player efficiency rating. Like, Luka is doing Luka things. He's phenomenal. But I got to do something that I, sometimes I got to do on the show. Just admit that I was flat out wrong. I was flat out wrong on Jason Kidd as a head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. My thing, I did not like the hire at all when he was hired, whatever it was, last July, August, whenever it was, when he was hired as the new coach of the Mavericks, for this reason. I thought that looking at how he had all that talent in Brooklyn, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, all be at the end of their primes, and couldn't, only won like one series. And then you look at, he coached Milwaukee and he coached Giannis, and they got to the playoffs and they were like a 6-7 seed, but they never could get out of the first round. And the year after he got fired, they had the best record in the NBA, and Giannis won his first MVP. So I was like, okay, that's a pretty big indictment on Kidd. He's doing a great job in Dallas, because their issue was they couldn't get stops. They can score with the best of them. They could not stop other teams for putting the ball in the basket. They were terrible. This season, they're 6th in defensive rating. So they're not just a top 10 team defensively, they're pushing to be a top 5 team defensively. They can lock you down. Okay, Jason Kidd's gotten Luka Doncic to buy into the concept of team defense, right? Let's see. We got a few comments here. John is my man John Rivera says too many games. Grady says, I think he's talking about baseball, by the way. Grady says Dallas can get to the second round, but I'd be super shocked if they come out of the West. What about the Nuggets if Murray returns? I think that's a lot to ask of Jamal Murray to come back off an ACL and then just immediately contribute. We've seen in Golden State what's going on with Klay Thompson. Kawhi, if he comes back, does he come back? Who knows? With the Clippers, I still think the Clippers are a team you do not want to face in the first round. If you're even the Suns, but if you're the Suns, Warriors, Grizzlies, you don't want to play the Clippers in the first round. But no, I think that's too much to ask for Denver. Can they win a playoff series depending on the matchup? Maybe, the way Nikola Jokic is playing. But I don't buy him as a title contender this year. Like next year, Jamal Murray's back. You got Jokic, who's still in his 20s. Yeah, I think they could be a contender next year. I think next year the West is going to be loaded. Kawhi, Paul George will be healthy. Obviously, you'll still have Golden State, Phoenix. Memphis will just be that much better. Dallas, obviously. But the thing for Dallas, they can stop you defensively, and I'm not second guessing. I first guessed this before the trade even happened, before I even thought a trade was being discussed. I said this earlier this season. Luka and Porzingis don't work together. They don't. And we're seeing that now. They traded him and they're better. I didn't like necessarily getting Spencer Dinwiddie for Kristaps Porzingis, but he's been great. I'm telling you, Dallas today would play Utah. They would beat Utah. Utah's lost some of their depth. And listen, you know me, I love Donovan Mitchell. He reminds me so much of Dwayne Wade. So much of a young Dwayne Wade. But who's he got to go along with him? Utah, it's going to be the same story as the last 3 playoff runs for the Jazz. Donovan plays outstanding, averages 30+. But you got Rudy Gobert and guys like Jordan Clarkson, who is often unreliable, and Mike Conley's getting up there in age. Utah's not going anywhere. They're a regular season team. Donovan needs more help. He needs a co-star. And he may have to leave to get a co-star. Dallas will beat Utah today. But you're telling me, with Luka, the playoff performer we know him to be, I mean, the last 2 postseasons against the Clippers, they threw everybody out. They threw the kitchen sink. They threw the basement sink. I mean, they threw everything at Luka, and he was still averaging. He was still putting up 30, 40 points a game, triple doubles. I mean, he was outstanding. He didn't have the horse to go along with him. Well, now he does. He's got guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, who's played much better since the Porzingis trade. You've got guys like Dinwiddie, as I mentioned, Jalen Brunson, Kleba. I mean, like they are a deep basketball team now that they're well coached. Not a shot at Rick Carlisle, but we see Indiana today. I mean, I was a big Rick Carlisle guy. I didn't like that he got fired, But looking back, I think it's safe to say that was the right decision for the Mavericks to fire him and bring Jason Kidd in. But Dallas, to me, is a title contender. They were not a well-constructed team, and they almost beat the Clippers twice. Would I take them to beat Phoenix or Golden State? No. Would I be shocked if they beat Phoenix or Golden State? I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't. What Luka's shown to do in the playoffs, what Jason Kidd with this roster, I'm telling you, I'm buying Dallas. I really am. I think they're the third best team in the Western Conference. I know Memphis has got a better record and all that, and Ja is out of this world, but when it's all said and done, I trust Dallas more than I trust Memphis. That would be a great series, by the way. I would love to see that. John says it's too soon for Dallas. They need another star. They do need another star, I think, to be what we consider, the favorites. But, you look at teams in the past, like, look at Milwaukee, for example. We knew Giannis was amazing, but we weren't quite sure about Middleton. But you had the addition of Drew Holiday, who's a different player, very different player to Spencer Dinwiddie, but you see the comparisons, right? Because you bring in a guy, you bring in a guard from a losing franchise who just wants to win. You're seeing the impact. Grady says, or he asked, who's your favorite in the East right now? Philadelphia might be my pick to win it all. Harden has been looking like the Harden from Houston. I think Philadelphia, for their lack of depth, because they trade a lot of their depth to Brooklyn, obviously. We're talking about Ben Simmons and Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. Obviously, you don't have that much depth, but obviously, like you mentioned, Harden's been outstanding. Joel Embiid, to me, is still the front runner for MVP. Tyrese Maxey has been amazing in this new role now that Harden has got over there. And you got guys, obviously, Danny Green. You got Matisse Thybulle, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. You've got a really good lineup there for Philadelphia. Would I pick them? I still think even if Harden was good in the playoffs, I'd take Milwaukee. They need to get Brook Lopez back, but assuming they do, I still got Milwaukee coming out of the East, but I don't trust Harden in the playoffs. I don't. I like Philly more than Brooklyn, way more than Brooklyn. Who doesn't? But I don't trust Harden in the playoffs. We've seen too many times, time and time again. You said he looks like Harden in Houston, and you're right. He's been scoring. He's been distributing. He looks great. Looks like a different guy than we saw in Brooklyn earlier this season. But we saw time and time again, year after year, what he did in Houston or what he didn't do in the playoffs, and it was bad. So I would say, to me, I've said this for a few weeks now, I think Miami is the biggest threat to Milwaukee. Because I think Milwaukee is the best player in the world, and Giannis, I think Milwaukee's coming out. Chris Middleton, we saw the big shots he hit yesterday against Phoenix, and Drew Holiday, the defense that he plays. He's had a little bit of a down year, but he's been fairly consistent, this season in terms of his defense down the stretch of games. I think Miami's the biggest threat because they're great defensively. You got Bam. You've got who else? Tyler Hero's the sixth man of the year. PJ Tucker, who can just flat out frustrate the heck out of you on defense. Miami's and Eric Spoelstra. I've always been a big Eric Spoelstra fan. He's one of the three best coaches in basketball, in my opinion. In Miami very well could get home court. I like Chicago. I don't like the direction they're going. I love the direction they're going. DeMar is an MVP candidate, and I saw the stat the other day, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago. They're bad against the elite teams in the NBA. Against the teams with the 7 best records in basketball, the Bulls are 1-12. So once they match up against the big boys, they played some of those teams close. Like they played Milwaukee close the other night, but they can't make shots in the stretch. They struggle to get stops when they really, really need to. Now, can they get Lonzo Ball back? Can they get Alex Caruso back? That's going to be huge for them. And I wouldn't be stunned if Chicago got to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I would not take them to beat either Miami or Milwaukee in a 7-game series. Philly, I'd probably take Philly, but it'd be probably in a 7-game series. John says, I got Memphis over Dallas all day. If you want to argue Ja versus Luka, that's a fair argument to have. But, and I love Taylor Jenkins, and obviously you got guys like Dylan Brooks, who they're hoping can get back soon, and Desmond Bane. and they're good defensively too. They're a bad three-point shooting team. Dallas isn't. And look, Dallas, frankly, has more playoff experience than Memphis does. Again, I love the direction Memphis is going, but also something else. And again, you know how much I love Ja Morant, but I've been on this for probably a year. The way he comes down and hits the floor so violently after those dunks, it's like, man, he's going to end up being Derrick Rose again. I don't want him to mess up his knee. And I know with modern medicine and technology, that's less likely to happen. But man, it scares me. He hits the floor hard after his dunks. That break the internet like he did against the Spurs a week ago. Like that's what scares me. John Rivera talking about James Harden says, but he didn't have Embiid. He didn't have Embiid. You're right, but he did have Dwight Howard. And he did have Chris Paul, and he did have Kevin Durant. I love Embiid. I'd take KD over Embiid, and he still came up small. And before you bring up the hamstring injury, in the second round against Milwaukee, yes, he did injure his hamstring, but he always does this. Healthy or not healthy, Harden always underperforms in the playoffs. I don't trust him. Yeah, I'm not gonna fall for this this trick again, this regular season trick, and then wearing out in the playoffs. Grady says, at what point do we blame Kevin Durant for what's going on in Brooklyn? There's a reason he left Oklahoma City and ran out of Golden State. Guy isn't a leader. LeBron or Kobe would get those cats together if he was on Brooklyn. Okay, let me start with your first point. Oklahoma City, I don't blame at all for leaving because we see the Westbrook effect. Westbrook wrecks everything he touches, whether it's in OKC, whether it's in Houston, Washington, the Lakers, wherever he goes next year, because that's everybody assumes Russell is going to be playing for someone else next year. You can blame. Here's what I blame KD for going to Brooklyn, for teaming up with Kyrie. But leaving Golden State, if he wanted to be the man elsewhere, I get that because he's good enough to be the man. It's not like Kyrie leaving for Boston to be the man. Kyrie's not a number one. He's a two. He's a great two, but he's not a one. KD's a one. There's no question. But leaving Golden State, leaving that culture, leaving low-maintenance Steph Curry and Klay Thompson didn't make a ton of sense to me, especially now that he and Draymond have made up and they're great friends now. Heck, they played together with Team USA, won a gold medal together. The Golden State one's a little more tricky, and I agree with you. He's not a leader. Like he's not a natural leader like a LeBron, like you mentioned, like Kobe, like a Steph Curry, a Jimmy Butler, guys like that. Like the Chris Paul, by the way. Charles Barkley religiously calls Chris Paul the best leader in basketball, and he may very well be right. Everywhere Chris Paul goes, he's the anti-Westbrook. Everywhere Chris Paul goes, he instantly makes them better. And so, that's the thing with KD. My blame for KD in Brooklyn is for bringing Kyrie along with him, for choosing Kyrie as his co-star. Kevin and James, that's different. But we know how unreliable Kyrie is in terms of his weird earth is flat, all this stuff. And obviously we know what the vax situation is. And last year, randomly skipping games after, look, I was pissed after January 6th too, but can't skip work because of it. Like Kyrie was the only NBA player that did that, trying to make it seem like everybody else in the NBA didn't care. They did. They just had to show up and play. And Kyrie just randomly skipped those games. And so you could make an argument that KD is to blame partly for the net struggles. I mean, again, he's came back and they're still losing. He scored 37 yesterday, but he got outshined by Jason Tatum's 54. By the way, I'm starting to think about Boston as a possible contender. Like they're kind of like Dallas too. They've got their superstar, although Jason Tatum has like a legit co-star in Jaylen Brown. And I was out on Boston coming into this year. I was out. I said they're going to be a play-in team. You don't want to play. You do not want to play the Boston Celtics in the postseason. That is for sure. John says KD going back to Seattle. Yeah, I mean, I hope Seattle. Listen, I hope Seattle gets. I hope they get another franchise again, man, because they got screwed over. I hate the fact that they had to move because their arena's bad and other factors came into play. And it's nothing against Oklahoma City. Not saying they didn't deserve a franchise. Those fans have been really good over there in Oklahoma City. But just to take a franchise right out of Seattle is like, dang, like that's kind of messed up. Maybe they could move. I mean, they would stay in the Western Conference. How about you move the New Orleans Pelicans? Nobody in New Orleans cares about the Pelicans. They care about the Saints and LSU football. Nobody in that city cares about the Pelicans. And if you go to Seattle, maybe, certainly if you have to change some of the management over there, but maybe you could attract more free agents, possibly, than you would in New Orleans. That's just a thought. John just says Boston hot right now. Absolutely. And what's his name? Udoka, the head coach for the Celtics. What a job he's done. Obviously him coming in and getting those guys to buy into what he's selling. Great defense, moving the basketball. Doris Burke, who called the game yesterday with Mark Jones, frequently brought that up about how Boston is constantly moving the basketball. John's talking about, they're talking about in the next 5 years, talking about Seattle. I sure hope so. Because I think that's a city that absolutely deserves an NBA franchise. Again, make them the Supersonics again. Bring back some new uniforms, right? Bring back sort of the green, uniforms and stuff like that with the red and the gold along with it. But Seattle deserves an NBA team, no question. And a Seattle legend, according to John, Gary Payton, is in a group to bring them back. And I hope that's the case. I hope in 2027, maybe even before that, I'm on here talking about the Seattle Supersonics playing an NBA game. That'd be great. That would be great for the league. I think it would be great for the city, obviously. And I don't think New Orleans would hurt that much because of it. Like, again, the city really doesn't care that much. When Anthony Davis was there, they didn't care. Zion, before the pandemic hit, they showed up. They wanted to see Zion, but they didn't really care that much about if the Pelicans won or lost. They just wanted to see a big Zion dunk. Zion in Seattle, they would care. I mean, we know how crazy loud those Seahawks fans are up there. And even Mariners fans, right? The Mariners have got a great fan base. So they definitely need an NBA franchise, no question. Just bring back the Supersonics as a whole. Bring back the uniforms, bring back everything. Briefly, before we go, again, I love discussing the NBA and other topics in the comments with all of you out there. The Kyler Murray situation in Arizona is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. There was a comment made, one of my favorites in this in the sports talk business, Colin Cowherd, said he had talked. I heard him say on Friday, and this stuck out to me a lot. He said he talked to a prominent member of the Arizona Cardinals upper management, and they said that you cannot find anybody in this organization that has a good thing to say about Kyler Murray. It is drama every day. Does that surprise me? Absolutely not. As a talent, Kyler's out of this world. 5'9", can sling it. Obviously, we know his escapability is incredible. He's a great athlete. He's an excellent quarterback. Elite quarterback, really. His leadership intangibles, I've been on this for probably 3 months now. Awful. I said, I think when the Cardinals lost, it might have been to the Rams. I think it was the Monday night game they lost to the Rams. I remember coming in and saying, Kyler Murray has the worst body language of any quarterback I've ever seen outside of Jay Cutler. Like, Jay Cutler would slump, and he'd just slump on the bench, right? Kyler Murray acts like every bad play, whether it's an interception, whether it's even an incompletion, he's like throwing his head back or slumping or like throwing up his arms at a receiver. It's like, dude, you got to realize this is a play-by-play league. If Tom Brady didn't recognize that, Patriots ain't coming back from 28-3 down. No question. But like one thing goes wrong, and Kyler's like, well, I guess that's it. His body language, man, is awful. J.J. Watt made like a joking video, but it was kind of been like, someone tells a joke, but they're really not joking that much. J.J. Watt made a video on social media recently where he's talking about, hey, listen, I'm trying to reach out to Kyler, and it's like, oh, J.J. Watt is like one of the most respected players in the league, and Kyler won't take his calls. This is bizarre. This is really bizarre. I would consider, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, I'm just throwing this out there. How about you talk to the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers? A decision reportedly is coming soon. Aaron reportedly wants to go to Denver. But think about this. Green Bay, if Aaron Rodgers does indeed want to leave, how about getting Kyler Murray in return? Because rather than paying Kyler Murray, you could get Aaron Rodgers. Now, I got my issues with Aaron, but it's not great for Kyler Murray. Aaron Rodgers with DeAndre Hopkins? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying the Cardinals shouldn't pay Kyler Murray, but that statement that his agent came out with was weird. And the Cardinals basically just gave a big middle finger to Kyler by extending their general manager, Steve Keim, and their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. They just said, "Oh, okay, you're gonna treat us this way. All right, GM Steve Keim extended, head coach, and I wasn't a huge fan of this move, but head coach Cliff Kingsbury, you're extended too. Kyler, we're not sure. This is why I don't like what's going on in Baltimore. Like, extend Lamar, okay? Extend Lamar Jackson. Kyler, I'd be a little wary on, because if he's this much of a diva now, what's it going to be in the future? Again, I'll reiterate it. I've said this for months. Worst body language of any quarterback in the league right now, including Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I think, cares about football. I really do. I think he cares about the game. As much as, Russell or Tom used to, or other guys, probably not. But Aaron Rodgers cares about winning football games. I don't doubt that. Kyler seems to be making every single play a highlight play. Like he only cares about highlights or beating the Cowboys. That's really all Kyler Murray is focused on. This is a bad look for Kyler Murray. Not that he wants to get paid. It's, get your money. Absolutely. Lamar Jackson, get your money. Dak, I said for years, Dak, get paid. Josh Allen, get paid. Mahomes, same thing. I got no problem. Get your money while you can. But ghosting teammates, deleting every Arizona Cardinals related photo on IG, unfollowing the Cardinals, unfollowing all of your teammates. This is weird. I mean, that's all I can describe it as. It's a weird situation in Arizona. But that's all I gotta say about Kyler. Like, this is bizarre. I'm really, really interested to see where this one goes. Maybe more interested in the Aaron Rodgers, because my gut tells me Aaron's staying in Green Bay. I've said that for months. I think he's staying in Green Bay, playing one more year on a huge contract, but we'll see. So with that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. And be sure to catch Carving It Up on social media, on Instagram at Carving It Up Pod. I'm sorry, Instagram's at Carving It Up Podcast. Twitter is at Carving It Up Pod. And on Facebook, search Bryson Carver. The Carving Up logo should pull up on your search bar. And so, and also to the Carving Up Podcast listeners, we appreciate that as well. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. It is good to be back, and we'll have a loaded show on Thursday. There's no question about it. So until then, have a great week. Stay safe, everybody. God bless you all. Peace out. I want some baseball back. Jeez. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.